Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Dave here. It's the 15th of 15th of July, 2023, and got you here actually going. I'm just going for a little wander actually in this lovely little area on the levels in Glastonbury. If I stand over there, you can just about maybe see the tour behind me. Maybe you can't. No, but maybe you can't see the top behind me. I'm just trying to work out. Oh no, it's hidden behind that bush. If I come around here just a little bit, maybe you can see it over there, just behind that big bush. So I'm kind of not in the best place, but maybe you can see it. I don't know, on a bigger screen. Oh my goodness, it can make my arm ache like buggery. This thing is. So anyway, getting to it. The reason I'm making this video is that if you've been watching my timeline long enough, you've kind of like you're kind of getting. And you know what? I've got this massive, great mound behind me. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to climb this and get a better view and rest this thing somewhere down, and hopefully I'm going to get a better signal up there. There's not too much wind. It's be a bit of a climb, but what did I want to talk about really was that a friend of mine, a very dear friend of mine, has who came into my life as one of my subscribers, and is actually a professor at is a professor at a university. I believe it's Cambridge, but I won't give it. He doesn't want me to give his name or anything else like that. Blah blah blah. But nonetheless, he's quite fascinated by my model and has been for quite some time. And what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and find because I've got my truck at the moment. I'm doing my truck up, and I'm on a site, and I didn't really want to kind of make a video there whilst I was on the site, but I don't know if I can plonk this down somewhere. I should have done this before really, but maybe I can, so I don't have to keep carrying it like that, because that's going to absolutely kill my arm. Excuse me 1 second. Very unprofessional. Not that anyone's getting paid around here, but can I do that? Is that going to still work? Oh my goodness me, excuse me. I should have done all of this before. That will give my arm a little bit of a rest. Will that stay there? Stay. Yeah, that will hopefully stay there for a little bit. I don't know if you're still getting me. There's a few people joined in there, but what I wanted to say was that this guy sent me the Daily Mail, their online edition, a screenshot of one of their shots talking about the heat waves. And I've never heard of a heat wave being named, and suddenly we've got two heat waves coming in, one after the other, one called Kerberos and one called Chiron. And you know, in my model, the pair that I built that model in 2020, as I discussed. So I'm not going to bring up the model here because obviously I'm just doing a live stream, but I built that model in 2020, and I've been developing it for the best part of a year and a half, and it took me probably, you know, best part of 3-4 months to actually to finish, to get to, you know, it's an enormous amount of work, because you just, you know, experimenting. But the I named those two, the two that I predicted coming in February, March, with the two Turkey earthquakes. One about I can't remember the exact dates now. I haven't got anything up on screen right now to be precise, but they were kind of like, they were 19 days apart, and the last one was about the 7th of March, and the previous one would have been about 19 days before the 7th or 8th of March, if that was the dates. But it was that kind of window, and I'd said you're going to see one and then you're going to see the other. It's not going to be like in 2010 and 2011 where they're coming in from above and going, sorry, they're coming in from under. Here they, or are they? I mean, it's tricky to see, but those ones seem to be coming almost in on just above the ecliptic plane. And I'm of a mind in 2010 2010 and 2011, they were coming in from under, just like the big blue one that's also coming in right now. It's all coming in, except that just like at the beginning of the year, they both came in like 19 days apart, but in the same year, because they're all coming in on the same ecliptic. And if they're coming in down like that, their point of crossing, it changes the whole dynamic. If they're coming, if that's the ecliptic plane and they're coming in like that, it changes the whole dynamic. One comes one year, and then the next year the next one comes. But if they're all coming in like that, it means it's when they're nearby, it's all coming in at the same point. Hey Dave from Buckinghamshire. Oh, look at that, I've got someone get in contact from and from Yellowstone. Look at that, we've got a few people from you know, a couple of people from there. I haven't got many people following right now, but I've only just clicked on. I haven't put any kind of sending anything out there to say that I was going live, but I found it really odd. I found it really odd that that they named these two heat waves, Charon and Kerberos, because that's what I call the two planets myself. And the reason why I got those names is because Charon was the last planet of the Pluto system discovered by Robert Harrington about the 70s. He was a massive influence to the way in which Zecharia Sitchin, you know, his whole picture of the system and how it interacts with Earth was massively influenced by Robert Harrington, who named the biggest one Charon. And of course, I'm suggesting that this big blue object that we keep seeing every 84 years is the same thing, that what Galileo was seeing, what Isaac Newton was seeing, what William Herschel was seeing, what those that discovered Neptune, those that discovered Pluto were seeing, is the same thing. We've been seeing it every 84 years, and we will continue to see it for another 400 years, because we're right next to it now. It's taken 400 years, if you like, to come in, and it's going to take 400 years to go out. So I mean, it says England. I've just sort of see someone making a comment there saying that England will have no heat wave. I mean, England's being, you know, because it's right next to the Atlantic, and all this low pressure. But ironically, it's low pressure down there that's creating this heat wave. It doesn't really seem to make much sense, because I'd imagine that heat wave to be enormous high pressure, but apparently it's sucking the air in from the oceans. The low pressure is drawing in from the oceans. How real that is, I mean, I don't believe anything the kind of meteorologists tell us or anything. You know, we're just like, we're just in, you know, the fact that they called this. Let's try and stay with this though. This Charon was the biggest. You know, that was the biggest planet of the Pluto system. So that would be an equivalent to Galileo naming the biggest planet to hit when he saw the big blue system, calling it Europa. So in my model, I call it Europa. Then I call it. Then we've got Jupiter. The ones I've added are Jupiter, Europa, and the twins I call Kerberos and Charon. And so I was showing the model, been showing the model for the last three years with this new model updated, which remember the whole kind of lineage of this was grappling with the idea of a heliocentric model right up until 2018, and then it was all falling apart. We couldn't explain it. We were getting so many flybys. It was fantastic. And then because of all the sightings in May, June and July, it was just throwing everything I had up in the air, and I just couldn't, even though I was successful with my 200-day kind of predictions, I wasn't getting a window on how the bigger model was working. And there were all these new flybys coming in from May, June, July that were just like, I didn't have a window on those. And I was very open about that. You know, I've just been, and then do you remember I said that, you know, look out for it. We're going to get a shot around about September 2019. And that's when 1st of September 2019, Alex Luhan captures that absolutely epic shot of the twin tail object, exactly where I was expecting to see it. Everything I said you'd expect to see, that it would be seen 1st of September, right where you're going to see it. It was going to go into the sun, and it was going to come out in February, March, which would explain the February and March flybys that we've been seeing. The Chile 8.8 on the 27th of Feb 2010, and 1 year and 13 days later, a 13-day difference in astronomical positions, we get Fukushima. So I had to account for that's a massive seismology. 3 nuclear power stations went into meltdown. We could understand it, but I was looking at it from a heliocentric model, so I was assuming that it was going to come in September and it had to go out somewhere. So it was going to go out in February and March. But what did we see? The shot was so distant. There was the sun, and we saw the object, the whole tail of the object. It hadn't come in and passed our sun at all. It had come in like it was going to go towards the sun. It had reared off and gone around here. It was in another relationship completely with something to what, from the perspective of the viewfinder, to the right of the sun, and it was absolute quintessential evidence that these objects were not orbiting our sun, that the sun was not the center of their story. It opened it all up. Suddenly we had a point of location where we could see this object going round. So I was finally able to start putting together all these new models and have this kind of, whatever you want to call it, Uranus, Jupiter, Pluto, Aries, Neptune, whatever you wanted to call this big blue object. We had a place where we could see these objects were orbiting around. We could triangulate, at last have some means of bringing it all together. And my subsequent models since 2019, until I built the current model, which needs loads of corrections, but overall it captures the basic essence of what's happened there, and we're making corrections, and I can see there's errors and Hydra that I put in there, because I still couldn't believe when I made the model that the big blue one actually comes off what it orbits, the red dwarf planet it orbits, and is looping right around our sun. I couldn't allow for that in my model, but nonetheless the mass of it, because of the seismology of what we saw on the 4th of May 2018, and because of the other sightings that we'd seen, like on June the 17th 2018, which was an epic shot, I knew that the seismology allowed for an object to be over on that far side. So I included Hydra in that, with the orbital mechanics of what could have been Jupiter, but I couldn't believe it. So I added that because I could account for that. Could there be 1, 2, 3, 4 twin tail objects, or was it 3? Was it the pair that we absolutely know that so many people have caught, that we can see all of the mathematics, and the other one that seems to come in, it crosses around about September, does this loop as I was talking about, the Alex Luhan shot on the 1st of September 2019, and is the innermost orbiting object that we can see from Earth. It doesn't even loop round our sun, but it obviously gets drawn into our sun slightly and then goes back round from whence it came. So we had that, number 1, and the pair 2, 3, and I added the 4th one, Hydra, to account for the mathematics, because Hydra and Jupiter, or this big blue object that by all the mass we are going to see in August. So we get the pair, what I call Kerberos and Charon, and then we get the big blue one, except that Charon was named after the big object, the biggest object orbiting the Pluto system. And so in essence, for them to call it, I mean, if we were talking about the heat wave, the summer of, say, 76, we wouldn't say the summer of 76, and do you remember the other summer of 76? We wouldn't divide that up into 2 heat waves. That was just the summer of 76. Suddenly we are dividing 2 heat waves, a line, and calling them Kerberos and Charon. And I know I'm the only person that builds an astronomical model that I can see based on all the sightings, not based on religious belief, not based on all the kind of like ancient scriptures and that sort of stuff, but just based on the sightings, and feeding those sightings into astronomical models and painstakingly going through trying to work out a way that I can account for all of those shots and bring them into a model. So I know I have an audience. You know, when my friend who's a professor at Cambridge gets in contact with me, he tells me, David, we have loads and loads of people discuss your model, especially in astronomy and astronomics. You question the fundamental model, and no one can, like I've demonstrated in my last 2 videos, and many more, that no one can make our standard model work with a moving sun. What happens is all the furthest orbiting planets get left behind. They all bunch up at the front edge of the moving sun, at the perihelion point of the sun. And because they're all coming around that front edge, when they get close to each other, they pull each other off their orbits. The whole thing falls apart. It cannot work. The standard model cannot work with a moving sun. Plus all your objects that are orbiting around the sun from first discovered, you know, Saturn, Jupiter, Uranus. I'm probably going to miss one out here, but Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, and now Eris, all being given different perihelion points, a different front end point, which means your sun always sits static. It's a totally unrealistic model. It's a totally unrealistic model. It's a religious model. And you know, I respect all of those that believe it, but you understand that when you're trying to build astronomical models and account for these things, you've got to move away from religious belief. You have to, because it's going to blind your ability to actually put this together, because you're not going to be able to move through it, because your beliefs are like, no, these invisible walls of belief, where we just say, no, we can't move beyond that. We can't move beyond the standard model, the Copernicus model, this 500-year-old model that is utterly outdated. And when I see these heat waves named after Kerberos and Sharon, knowing that we saw those 2 flybys in, like I say, in Turkey, where we saw the clouds, these what everyone's calling clouds, these lenticular clouds that I'd said you're going to see exactly at those times and cause the type of earthquakes that you were going to see in the northern hemisphere. But these objects now are just coming, they're now dipping down, and they're now getting very close to the ecliptic and about to cut through. But what I've been saying is that if this big blue object is indeed coming in, then it will begin with volcanoes in the northern hemisphere. And that's exactly what happened directly after I made my last video. I'm just expecting the volcanoes to go off, and sure enough, the Icelandic volcano went off. And you can see, you know, there's just a big earthquake in Alaska yesterday, and that's further south, and the volcano in that area. This is, if you can imagine, that's the ecliptic plane, and Earth is coming round the ecliptic plane, and as it comes around the ecliptic plane, this object is also coming round our sun now, and it's just above the ecliptic plane, cutting down to where Earth is coming out. So they're both coming to the same place. This is not going to, this blue object is not cutting down and through and going to pass down under Earth. It's going to come out past Earth. It's going to be the closest flyby. After this, next year, it's going to be further ahead than it is now. It's going to be because the object, it is actually fundamentally orbiting. It's going below the ecliptic plane, or we are rising above the ecliptic plane of the whole planet X system. Our sun and Earth and all its orbiting bodies are basically going above the ecliptic plane of the planet X system for the first time. It's been going under for a long time. So it's actually, our sun is ascending. The planets orbiting our sun are ascending the planet X system only just, but this big blue object is not going to go steep down to meet that system down there. It's just going to go, it's going to be like I say, this is our last possible year for a close flyby in the July-August exit points. And of that I have absolutely no doubt, because I've charted this for too long. Sorry, I've just had a telephone call coming in there. So that was ironically my friend, actually, who who sent me the so his ears must be burning. Who sent me the shot of the what was it? It was the Mail Online. Yeah, talking about the heat waves, Kerberos and Sharon. Anyway, so I found that really, really profound. And of course, after that last video I made, suddenly the volcanoes in the northern hemisphere start, and then it moves down to the next bit where you're seeing kind of like say, you know, the volcano and the earthquake that just occurred in Alaska is actually just below the latitude of the Icelandic volcano, and that's the type of angle that we're going down. We're coming out towards the August position now, and that gives you an idea that it is descending. It is descending. It's closing in on the ecliptic plane. It's getting ever closer to us, as is the last of the two flybys, the pair. And hello, Shanti. Hello. Little doggy's just arrived, seeing us at the top of the hill. Give a little sniff around. So anyway, so I found that quite exciting because you know, when I saw that, I knew absolutely in my heart that they know. You see, because right now this is all about trying to get the enemy, trying to get the other side to engage war. Remember what happened to the Romans? They thought they could just butcher their way through the world and take whatever they wanted because they believed that the Roman pantheons, these planets that orbit this big red dwarf planet, the true Roman pantheons, these real celestial bodies, they thought they were on their side, and they got annihilated in 262, and that was the downfall of Rome. And also it marked the commencing of a whole new form of control mechanism, as in religious belief. And that's been going on till now, and we've seen belief and all its many kind of like forms being reinvented over and over again, with carbon zero and just being the next phase of that. People wanting to be carbon zero for some reason, making absolutely no sense, but they want to be carbon zero. You know, you would have thought that everyone would have wanted abundant, clean energy, but we want to be carbon. Yet once someone is actually into carbon zero, they become as fundamental as a Christian becomes. I know that sounds hard because I know so many of my subs are Christians, but I also know that we can follow in faith or we can follow in belief. And for me, there's a massive difference. When we allow belief into us, religious belief, it is, you know, I made a comment on Wayne Steiger's channel the other day talking about belief, talking about how belief is the kind of like is the mechanism that we are walled off from knowing. It stops us from knowing because it puts up an invisible wall of belief, and we can't go beyond it. And when we allow religious belief, that's why in universities and stuff like that, they could debate my timeline, they could debate my model and pull it apart. But those who take on people's scientific studies and don't truly understand them and only believe them, they can't quantify the science, so they have to believe it. And many of us have been in this state where we've been in this state of religious belief, and we've become fundamental over things that we don't understand, we can't prove. When someone says, I don't believe in Planet X, I'm not believing in Planet X. I'm observing Planet X. I'm calculating its movements. I'm saying when you're going to see it, when you're going to see the seismology. All over the Guardian newspaper, when those two shots came in of what were called lenticular clouds, people weren't calling them lenticular clouds on the Guardian comments. They were calling them earthquake clouds. So I know that there's a massive community out there that are watching this, and those that truly do understand this, but are not allowed to speak because they're tied up to all sorts of, you know, contracts, the official secrets contracts and stuff like that, that we have to be kind of like exist in the realm of nutbag conspiracy theorists. They cross that line where they got the information they want, but they can't share it because they signed up to all these different secrets and all these different cartels and all these different gagging orders that restrict them from speaking about this, but they can observe it. So when I see Kerberos and Charon, the heat waves being named after Kerberos and Charon, I know that they know. I know that they know. They don't know what to do about it because of when if you're a part of this whole agenda, this NATO agenda, which is desperately trying to push the world beyond NATO's borders into provoke them into a state of war where they attack, where they go into war. But unfortunately, we, in our efforts, I mean, don't get me wrong, no one so far, no country so far has declared war on another country. Ukraine hasn't declared war on Russia. Russia hasn't declared war on Ukraine. Britain hasn't. You know, this whole thing, Zelensky going on thinking he's going to get membership. They're they're terrified. They wouldn't risk allowing Ukraine to become part of NATO right now, because they would claim that NATO is peaceful and that anyone who joins NATO joins in peace. So they can't back a warring agenda, or they go under the wheels of this. This was my whole message when I came into this. Before, when I wrote Laughing Gas, I was just told, you approach the wall. Nothing gets past the wall that is of war. You know, throw all your depleted uranium, all your nuclear bombs, all your kind of hate, all your racism, all your kind of you will not scratch the surface of this. It has seen so much bigger and so much better. So we saw the Romans do it in 262. We saw the Spanish being led into it in 1588, where they were believed that God was with them, and they were going to go and wipe out all the kind of they were going to wipe out all of the Protestants, the Protestants, those who said that we should have the right to access the scriptures ourselves. They shouldn't come through third party. We should be able to read those scriptures ourselves and make sense of them ourselves and have our own books that we can read, rather than having it round down our necks by these Catholics who butcher, rape and wrong-uns, utter wrong-uns. You know what I mean? Forcing Christianity down your throats, and all their harsh judgments and the way they treated humanity. You know, there's a real problem with. We said I've gone offline, so maybe I had gone offline. Sorry about that. Maybe it chipped off. Maybe I should hold it up a little bit. Oh, it's on the top of the world for you. We do a twist around on the top of this hill, because it's a bit round. Oh, don't know what you can see there. I'm probably blinding you with the light. Maybe I should come back around this way. Oh look, you can get a good view of the tour though. Can you see the tour there? It must be around about there. Can you see that? Anyway, there's the tour behind me. And what a beautiful day it is. Although it's been raining all day, it's a beautiful day now. The last of it's been actually piddling down. But anyway, so, you know, you imagine that we're walking a very, very fine line in the west. You know, my message was, don't worry about your Earth. I've already deployed my best. Unprecedented peace will now be waged on your Earth. That was the answer I got when I took my big message out to South America to do the ayahuasca and to see if I could open up a door to find my way of kind of routing to kind of finding a solution to all this, of a guy that was obsessed, was tortured by seeing his country being used as the Trojan horse to break up the European Union and feed it into a war against Russia, just to break the euro and the pound and the dollar, to bring all of these currencies down and to forge the way for a new frontier, to carve out a new form of economic hegemony against the coming alliance of the BRICS nation, as in Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa, that were the original formation of this idea of a new gold-backed currency built between these countries that have just been utterly raped by these bogus fiat just print as much as you like, a bottomless pit of just credit, just buy up everything with monopoly money. And so we know that that's got to come to an end, because the world is going to eventually stand up to that. And now all these nations are all developing the same levels of technology, the same levels of kind of like of weaponry, that, you know, and then you invent some kind of weapon today, and then next week someone's countered that on every level. It's just like technology's goes out of date quicker than milk in the fridge, you know. And so we are now in a situation where where those that are part of this agenda, which is trying to take the world to war, are watching this, seeing this going on, and having to, because we're all accountable individually. We're all not choosing a side here. You're not choosing NATO, China or Russia. You're choosing a soul. Each one of you individually, with your affiliations right now, is choosing a soul. And many of you think that your beliefs are who you are, but many of these beliefs are narratives being piped into you. They are thought restrictors. They restrict where you go and where you do not go in your own head. All of that is about to be ripped out of humanity with this coming flyby. Utterly ripped out. But many are so associated to their ego consciousness that they do not want to separate from that, and they do not have to. They do not have to. This is the first time for thousands of years that the ego consciousness, as it was explained to me in my process, this is the first time that the ego consciousness will come back into the living through us, through those who choose to be that ego. You can now become your ego. For those to be your high self, you can become your high self. But at the end of this, there will be one human and one soul, and no backseat drivers. It doesn't matter what systems they think they can build, what they want to put back in place. You know, you can imagine what happened in the Colburn Bible. What that describes is that when the flyby happened, it pulled out their higher selves. You know, humanity isn't punished for mistakes. It is punished for the mistakes it fails to rectify. When they came down from the mountain places, from their hiding places, they had no memory of who they were. They had no memory of their names. They were as babbling fools. Lost everything. Their guides and gods were gone. There was just one human, one soul, and nothing. And so what is being attempted now, as what it seems from my perspective, the way I'm seeing it, from all that I've heard, is that they are going to attempt, if this happens, and those who become their egos and have no memory of and are just clueless, they are going to try to transmit a signal into those beings to give them a sense of identity, a thought process, that they believe they are that narrative, not the soul that has just arrived in them. So yeah, that's basically what's happened to us, is that we've had this narrative piped into us, not into our hearts, but into the connection between our hearts and our heads, and the way in which we process, the way in which the human processes what comes into the heart. You see, after this, if you or anyone you know chooses to become that ego, it's not a wrong choice, it's not a bad choice, it's a human choice. If you choose that, or if you become your highest aspect, whichever you choose, there's no right or wrong, there's no good or bad, it's what serves you best. You know, it's, but in this process, in this massive bottleneck, that which, if the ego, if any human being chooses the ego, it will arrive in the heart of the matter. It will not be ruling over the human being through a belief thought. and it will have to drive the human the way your high self drives you now, through the heart of the matter. It will not have a thought narrative. It will be only driving the human through feeling, and it's a very different process to the current way in which the ego controls a human being. You know, the way in which ego has been piped into the human state, it can only communicate onto the human state through negative comments, through putting you down and lowering your vibration and disruption, because as soon as it enters into high vibration, you can reconnect to your highest aspect. So the only way it can control you, can you imagine? It is in the ultimate prison. It can only exist within you in negativity. And material wealth, it cannot, as soon as you start creating in love and high vibration, it hasn't got a footing in that space. It can't appreciate, it has no connection to your heart. It is a belief rule book. It is an angry, I don't know, negative, everything's a negative control, everything's a put down, everything's a state. Any nugget you get from up there, if you feed it straight back to your ego, it's going to tear it apart, destroy it. That's why when I did my process and I was told, I was landing, I had this dream or this vision that I was landing in the Amazon, and it was so crystal clear. I was blowing against I was kind of clearing the fog away from the window as I was coming down, and I'd done that journey before. I've come into Akita, so I recognised it was real. I had no reason to question it. And then we got so low that one of the trees hit the wing and broke off and came over the top of the wing, and I shouted out, pull up, pull up. And I went back to my Orbits folder where I'd get my messages, and I said, why did you show me that? And the message I got was, it's pointless, you making all this effort to come to the top of the mountains and to come as high as you can to connect with your highest aspiration, and then take all of that and feed into your doubt, feed into your ego doubt. How do you get your nuggets and fly above the crocodiles? How do you stay in the castle and not fall into the moat with all the crocodiles below? How do you stay at the highest aspect of yourself where you don't annihilate all your best? It's like you fall in love and then you suddenly feed that love into doubt and insecurity and jealousy, and it gets ripped apart. You have to find ways of keeping, when you're in love with someone and they're really testing you, how do you keep it so you don't destroy that relationship by going into jealousy and doubt and all those negative thoughts? Maybe she's this, maybe he's that, maybe they're that, they're this, and that these gremlins get into your mind and start tearing your nuggets of wonder apart. And that's what we all have to learn to do. We all have to fly above the noise. Especially now. Now is the greatest challenge. These flybys are like a cord that goes straight through the spleen. They go straight through the liver and the spleen. These flybys, you can picture a cord like the chakras coming down through you. And picture that the spleen is one of those, even though it might traverse and it might not sit in the centre. The spleen, when we say, they need to vent their spleen, when you're in your stomach, or in your liver, you've got this energy, your life energy, your liver, your living energy, your fundamental, your main point of chi coming in and being distributed. This is the real energy. Oil really burns, and this is what is. This is really processing the oil, the real where the energy comes from. This is a big part of nutrition. This is a big part of the nutrients coming in. This is a big part of a whole energy creation. And we can send it up where we're spitting it out of our mouths. And in Chinese they call it raging liver fire. And we would say, oh God, there's spitting blood. We can traverse it. Let's go send it down. We can send it down into our large intestines, where we take a stand and we're like, and we're powerful, and we say, oh, they've got some gall, because it's going through the oil is going, the bile is going through the gallbladder and down into the large intestines, and the intestines are what the Chinese and the Japanese call the sanjiao, the triple burner. This is your main defense point. This is down here, this kind of like, hey, where you're most defensive, where you're holding your energy down there. That's your triple burner, and that is when you take a stand, and that is how you power up your Wei Qi, your external energy field. And when that's potent, you look formidable. You look able and formidable. And anyone who sees you wants to give you grief. They're going to see that, and they're going to go, whoa, power. And you exude that power. But when all of our victories that we've had are all set amongst these times where we failed to hit the mark. These other times where we haven't spoken up, where we haven't spoken our truth, where we haven't said what's needed to be said, we haven't stood in our power. And maybe we haven't let it come up, maybe we should have released that anger or done something with it or sent it down. But when it's not sent up and it doesn't come out any which way, and it goes laterally into the spleen, it goes into a blame box. And that's what the spleen is. The spleen is the unsorted box, where all the shit that you haven't dealt with, it just got balled up and it was never sent out, and it gets traversed into the spleen. And there's a lot of them in there. There's a whole load of old stories where you it's the shoulds, woulds and coulds box. I wish I had, and I should have had, I could have had, oh, I would have had. But he didn't. And that echo box is the home of ego. It's the home of ego. It's not where ego it's where ego lives. It's the echo box. It's the files that ego has access to. It's where that noise is stored. And so when they say they need to vent their spleen, they need to get that stuff out of them, because it taints everything that's going on in every moment. That you're seeing and experiencing is being tainted by the noise coming from the spleen. And so that's that type of energy is some people lose their spleen. Some people end up losing their spleen for whatever purpose, and it can be a wonderful thing to lose your spleen, because you can let go of a lot of old karma, or you can learn to process it in different ways. But this is, to get through this time, these things are going to be hitting that, and a lot of you are going to detach from this noise now. A lot of you are going to detach from all of this noise and become your highest aspects if you want to. A lot of you are here. You chose to come here and help this ego consciousness come out of this space. And whenever you come, in one life we might come as a woman to experience that side of things. Another life we might come as a man. Another time we come in as a woman in service to the highest. Other times we come to be in service to ego, because we're there at that point in that incarnation to work with ego consciousness. And then everyone thinks you're kind of an arsehole. But when you see through it, many of you know total arseholes that are really, really difficult characters, but you love them, and you see something special in them, and you see beyond that noise, and you learn tremendous depth of compassion where you see the highest aspect beyond, and you know that there is something better beyond all that, and so also help them. And I promise you, they are also have a highest aspiration just as high as yours, even though they might be incarnating to work with ego. I phased out there by the looks of it. It just says you're live again, so I lost on that. But it's ask yourself now, what do you want to do? Do you want to go after the big blue one? This is when we fly by it. Many of you will have the opportunity to go to the fifth dimension at last. because it will all change after this. The Earth astral realms will be annihilated after this. They will be absolutely annihilated, because they're all being migrated, and then it's going to start over here on Earth. It's all going to start over, a whole new cycle. It's just business as usual on Earth. It's just business as usual, except that it's just a massive group of souls that are moving from Earth-based astral realms into a fifth-dimensional neutral realm, which is all of your best, brought into a single merging realm, a massive singular realm where all the beings are invited in peace. It's not a karmic realm like this realm, it's totally different, but it's made by all of us, it's all of our bests. It doesn't mean you don't come back to Earth afterwards. It just means that when you incarnate on Earth, you're coming from love. You're not coming from maybe trauma, because many people create enormous trauma in the astral realms, the mess that they've created, and many people are learning endlessly, coming to and fro Earth, just learning to clean out mess from their astral realms and try and overcome stuff that they've brought into their astral realms because of actions and deeds that have happened in their past, and that this is why our karma stays with us, because it's at their private realms. But if you invite stuff into this realm, you're inviting it into the astral realm, and such is that's just the nature of things, and it's anyway. I think I'm probably said enough of there, and I'm just looking at the sunset, and I know my message is so peculiar and so over the top at the moment. I don't know what to do about that. My message is coming much more to what was given to me when I wrote Laughing Gas, and it's making so much more sense, that book, for me. It is what it is anyway, but big times ahead anyway. We're back to the flybys anyway. All these objects now are, if they go past us and they go into our night sky, we're going to start seeing stuff. Anything that goes past us and going into our night sky, basically we've just had the first flyby. We don't know really what happens at this point, because the last time any of us would have experienced this type of flyby, they would have thought at the end of the Second World War, around about 44, 45, that it was going to be the biggest, closest flyby, and that this big event that is coming in now, that seems to be coming in now, would have happened back then. That's why they would have detonated the nuclear bomb in 1945. That's why they would have done all that stuff. That's why the whole war was waged from 1939 to 1945. That's why the whole thing was put into place, and no one would dare pick up the guns or the weapons and actually go directly to war until after the big blue ones flies by, because they will be terrified. You're going to war with God. You're literally going to war with God in that situation, and to go under those wheels and to plummet yourself. If you mess up here, your soul will not allow your humanity to ruin what it has built up for itself over the last 1800 years of repeatedly coming here and building. It take all the stuff that you've created, your highest. It's all safe. It's the Earth astral realms of being migrated to a higher place, but your highest aspect will not allow you to destroy all that is created just for greed and selfishness, just because you believe that you have the right to start World War III, just because you believe you have the right to back a country that would dump depleted uranium bombshells on someone else, that would, that all these cluster bombs, everything is just going against the grating of utter decency at every juncture at the moment. And you can see that not everyone, even though they might have affiliated themselves with all these different organisations, that doesn't mean they have their souls with them on there. Their souls will not go, their souls will pull out. And when I saw that Kerberos and Sharon on in the on the Mail Online kind of like website, I knew that they know. I knew they know. It's obvious. We've just seen the most fantastic sightings of it over and over and over again. Can't get round that now. This is going to be a hell of a few months. This is good. You know, the seismology. Seeing, you know, they're getting forest fires in La Palma now. Look where all these volcanoes and earthquakes are happening. They're happening right on the plate boundaries. You know, that the earthquake's just gone on in Alaska, right on the plate boundary between the Pacific plate and the North American plate. It's like that's moving down. And if La Palma is starting getting forest fires on La Palma, you know La Palma is getting hot. And that's the plate boundary between the African plate and the Eurasian plate. And that leads out to the Azores. And we are playing with fire now. We are playing with fire now. What's on the table is the current direction, the way things are looking, the way the British government is pushing this, and the way the British government is definitely trying to push NATO into full-scale, all-out war to try and force Russia's hand into an invasive move. If this doesn't work, though, then no one knows what's going to happen after this flyby. Massive, profound effect on all of us. We're going to be very different. There's going to be no belief in anyone's head after this. There's going to be no restrictions on where you can go with your mind. Unless, of course, this whole system of that which cannot be mentioned has some profound effect that I'm imagining it probably will have. I'm talking about, I won't give too much detail, but I think you know what I'm talking about. It's they're going to try and hack and run a narrative and also steal, be able to record and take. We've been used as, when we don't create in love and beauty, we just create. So that can be used to create realms, literally realms, architecture. And we've been used for the last 1,000 years to create realms for those who really invaded Earth. And they like us to create out of love, out of giving and generosity. And we are unhappy, so that creation, because what we create in love goes to a higher place, and they can't touch that. So they have to create us, have to get us to create in war and anger, and they want us to create a whole world in dark anger and war, and that's how they create their realms. And anyway, no one really knows what's going to happen. We've all got kind of a bit of a window, and I'm only trying to share, I truly do not know. I'm just trying to piece together from all that I've been told. So it's, and the messages that have been coming through for me, but Kerberos and Sharon, here we go. And whether you consider Sharon to be the big blue one, because it could also be the big blue one, because that seems to be what Harrington, being the Carrington and the Harrington event. Robert Harrington and the Carrington event confused. But yeah, Freudian slip there though. But the Carrington event might occur with the Harrington planet, and the Carrington event, as in a super close flyby that creates such a massive electromagnetic burst, it frazzles every piece of electronic technology and machinery, everything, including the technology that's been used to hack us, the whole thing, complete neutralization of all systems. and 3 days of darkness. And you can imagine, if you're getting 3 days of darkness, that means that the object, if something goes in front of the sun and goes that way across it, it goes out for as long as it takes for it to move past it. Like a solar eclipse where the moon moves past it, it's, you know, between a minute, 3 minutes maybe at the most, or something like that. I think there's been longer, but you know, it's not going to be much longer than that. But a 3-day eclipse where something's blocking the sun constantly means it's either moving towards you or away from you. And if it's blocking the sun constantly, you know it's online with you, and that means that you know there's going to be, if there's an eclipse, even though if the eclipse just stays going and doesn't change, eventually you know it's just game over. That is not what I saw when I was shown Planet X. I saw it flying by. I saw it blocking the sun. Everyone panicking, and then Earth moves out of the way of it and it flies by, but there's a massive plasma burst between the two. That's what I was shown. And that plasma burst will ultimately end this age completely. It will be the end of belief on this planet. The utter end of belief. Yeah, you can hear narratives and that sort of stuff, but you will have nothing restricting where you can go in your head anymore. You'll have a sovereign mind. Every being, there'll be one human and one soul. Yeah, the egos will be here and they will be driving it through the heart of matter. You will be driving it through the heart of matter. Whichever way you go, we all will be. You know, it doesn't matter who's here. It will be the beginning. It will be the age of the. It will be like the age of the wise man and the fool again. There'll be Nubians that will just be, it will be their first time in body for a very, very long time. No one knows exactly how this is going to be. Every thought these beings have had has been in the form of hate. That's the only emotions, that's the only expression they have been allowed to express from where they come from and how they have been used in their process. So this will be their liberation from this very dark place where they can express high vibration emotions again for the first time for thousands of years. So this is a win-win-win situation. This is a win for the higher self. This is a win for humanity. And this is actually a win for the ego consciousness. It is what's been created as a win-win-win situation, because this whole process has been allowed to help those souls escape from this place and to move up in for thousands of years. They walked into it voluntarily and then they got stuck there for a very, very long time. So this is the big story. This is a very big story that's playing out. And the northern hemisphere, but even steeper. And the next year even steeper. And you know that this will be my last closest flyby for until 2032. Next one literally is, you know, the 2008 crash, financial crash. That was the Sichuan earthquake, the massive Sichuan earthquake. So we always say, you know, it was the Lehman Brothers that caused the 2008. It wasn't. It was the massive earthquake that happened in China. You know, and China rules over the property market much more than you can ever believe, as we really kind of discovered with when Evergreen went down. Evergreen or Evergrande? I think it was Evergreen went down. The massive, it's basically the Chinese government investing directly into the Chinese property market. And we got a real window of just how big that has been over the last few years when Evergreen or Evergrande went down. I think it's Evergreen, but might be Evergrande, but so we go 2008 and we add 2008, yeah, that takes us to 2008. We wouldn't have had a flyby in 2008 that came out in August and September, because it crossed the ecliptic plane like that. So it passed in May, June, didn't come out to August and go right round to August. It's passing out. It literally, it was just coming above sorry, coming from below and going above. And so there was this one point where it felt in May, June. This has come round like that. It's coming in now from the north, just cutting down across, and they're going to pass like July, August, but more like August, September, really, the big blue one, but most likely around August. It could be late July as well. I mean, it's all to play for at the moment. Lots and lots and lots of stuff going on. It's all here. After this, no more flybys, no more close flybys for centuries. But the closest flyby we'll get is probably, like say, in May, June, the same as the Sichuan earthquake sort of thing. May, June 2023, like eons away. That's your next closest flyby. You know, don't get me wrong, you're going to see it and that sort of stuff, but they're going to be like flybys, like far away. They're going to look like far away, distant objects, like we've been seeing, you know, from about 2011 to about 2015, where we were seeing them and amazing little shots, but they were distant sort of things. They weren't getting like the massively close shots we're getting now. This is the last of it. This is the last of it. Anyway, that's a waffle, isn't it? So I'm going to go through, see some of the comments that have been made, and wish you good luck in all of this process. You know, you've got nothing to fear. You've got nothing to fear. Your soul is safe. It's just if you want to stay rooted and have your soul rooted into your humanity and go through this, you need to put that out there. Why do you want to stay? You know, what do you want to do? What's your purpose in all this now? What are you gonna do? You know, and because you might not want to stay. So said to me, as you know, my guide said, David, I've bound you to your base. As in, you're going to stay if you wish to, but he said, understand, you might not want to. You might not want to stay. You might not like it. So it's not going to be an easy time for the first. This is going to be it's going to be a challenging time. It's going to be a challenging time, but I think that humanity and this world is going to really flourish after this in a way that we just can't conceive. We've got windows of it in what we see with the pyramids and our ancestry, but that's what we're going back to. We're going back to a very high vibration. We're going back to bringing it all together, and it is going to come back together again, and it is going to be okay. It really is going to be okay. You know, if it wasn't going to be okay, I wouldn't have done any of this. I'd have been on a beach sipping caipirinhas. You know what I mean? I'd have just blown all of this out. You know, and so we just got to hold on to that. I remember it is going to be okay, and there is a big picture, and there is a whole process going to try and sort this whole thing out and to give Earth not just a future, but the opportunity for an amazing future. Big golden rings of light. You know, if you want to help anyone, put big golden rings of light around them. Ask for protection for them. You know, and you'll get so much of what you're trying to give out. And yeah, big golden rings of light and protection. Thanks for following me so far, and you know, sorry I will waffle on a little bit, but you know, some of us don't know how to broach any of this really, but good luck for it. Take care. Ciao. How I end up. Sure you want to stop the streaming? Okay, bye.